Growing up, I loved comic books. It was the highlight of my month to go to the comic book store and pick up new issues. I loved comic books so much that when my favorite titles were canceled for a 4-month miniseries, I dashed off a strongly worded letter to the editor in which I said, not only do you disrespect your fans by doing this, you disrespect your creative team. To this day, Andy Kubert, whenever he interviews, says, well, my resume says I illustrated X-Men 14 through 59, but actually it was through issue 63. You know, it's just that there was this alternate reality time travel thing. I can draw you a diagram if you want. Anyway, by the time I got to high school, I had stopped reading comic books, but I still would think about superpowers occasionally. A lot. Pretty much all the time. Until I became invisible. Invisibility is actually the easiest superpower to get. All you have to do is take a menial job where no one really cares about who you are or the work that you're doing. My first job was shelving books in a library, and I first realized that I had acquired my amazing powers when my first week on the job I was pushing my cart along as you do, and when I got to the fairy tale section I saw 2 classmates of mine, Jessica and Ira, and they were making out in the stacks. In the suburbs I grew up in, the library was kind of the only place you could go as a teenager where you didn't have to spend money and you didn't have any adult supervision, so high school kids would go to the library to make out pretty much all the time. And that would be fine if they were doing it in front of like the Toni Morrison books or the David Foster Wallace books where no one goes. But they would always do it in front of the Garfield comics and like the high density parts of the library. A lot of library patrons really hate Mondays. So I see Ira and Jessica, and I gotta shelve my books, and I'm like, hey, no response. I gotta get through. No response. I step over them, shelve my books, and ask them if they remembered history class's homework. No response. I was like, I have the power. Being invisible is kind of amazing because you see and hear things that you would never see and hear if people could see you. Pushing my cart along, I hear a woman go in a really loud voice, yeah, I upped my son's antidepressants take. And I was like, Mom! No, it was actually my classmate's mother. Pushing my cart along, I saw like the hottest girl in high school picking her nose, and not just like one like kind of itching thing. It was like her whole fist was up there. She was going to town. And about half the time when I got to the human biology and reproduction section, there would be a kid with a book in one hand and the other hand down his pants. This was before high-speed internet, so those were different times. But with great power comes great responsibility. Which is why whenever I shelved the children's books, I would always make sure to stick a Rodney Dangerfield cassette tape in with the Raffies, because I think every 3-year-old has a right to know that the ultimate sign of trust is 2 cannibals having oral sex. They're gonna find out sooner or later, come on. But invisibility had a downside too, because we would have monthly staff meetings, and whenever the meetings ended early, we would shelve books. And so after my first meeting, I was shelving my books, and I heard 2 of my coworkers, John and Roberto, and they were saying, man, I can't stand Dave. What the hell is wrong with him? And I was like, oh man, I just started here. What did I do? Whatever, I'll be nice and I'll win them over. So I spent the next month and, being super friendly to them, being really nice. And my coworkers, it was like the League of Extraordinarily Awkward Gentlemen. But I felt like I kind of made a connection and was breaking through, and we talked about things like superpowers and comic books, and it was pretty cool. But then after the second staff meeting, I'm pushing the cart, and I hear John and Roberto again. what the hell is wrong with Dave? I can't stand that asshole. And I was like, what the hell? I'm just gonna stop talking to these people because clearly I can't win. And, you know, if they say this to me again, I'm gonna get angry, and they will not like me when I'm angry. And sure, so I spend the next month avoiding them. And at the next meeting, shelving books. What the fuck is wrong with Dave? What a dick! And this is going to be my fatal attraction. Not the movie, but the comic book series where Wolverine loses his adamantium skeleton. I'm going to confront them and nip it in the bud. So I stop shelving and I walk over to them and say, look, you guys cannot talk about me this way. You know that I'm right there. You can see me. And that's not appropriate. And John and Roberto kind of look at each other confused. And they look at me confused. They look at each other and they say, we were talking about the other Dave who works here. Right before you started, he harangued us for like an hour. Even when you have superpowers, it's not always about you.